Hello, everyone. Roger Connect, President of Universal Accounting Center, and I'm excited today to be speaking with Adam Syvock from Infinity Accounting. And this is going to be a wonderful experience for a variety of reasons. One, he's been very successful with this practice, and he has a story to share that I believe you'll be able to relate to and be able to use as you're in the process of starting and building your own successful firm. But secondly, he happens to be one of our many coaches that actually works with individuals directly, helping them in the process of starting and building their firms as well. So it's going to be kind of insightful to not only hear his perspective and story, but at the same time, Adam, I'm sure you've got quite a bit of information to share that's very, let's say, informative that they'll be able to actually act on. So really what I'd like to do, Adam, is kind of start with your beginnings, having you share kind of your experience. What got you into accounting? What kind of excited you about accounting? Why do you like accounting? Let's begin there.
Well, I mean, it's weird, but I love accounting. I initially started out as a pre-law student when I went to college, and I thought I was just going to be doing that, becoming maybe a lawyer or something in the legal field. Realized about a year after that I hated writing papers constantly, so I went to finance and found that to be a little more theoretical versus practical. And throughout the course of my just general business studies, took a intro to accounting course, and I just loved it. The teacher was engaging, and that was half of it. But aside from that, my father always had a small business. My grandmother was a small business accountant doing manufacturing accounting for small manufacturing companies. So, I mean, it was kind of all around a little bit. Just getting that initial accounting training just kind of set it off and kind of lit a fire, and been doing that since.
Well, I will admit that it's always interesting to me how many of the people I work with do have some connection in their upbringing with small business, whether it be family or friends. And all of a sudden, here you are sharing this instance where you've got your father and your grandmother kind of in that small business world. So it's kind of in your blood, and you get into this accounting. You like the essence of it. You had a great professor that kind of gave you something as a starting point. So now you're in the accounting profession and you start your own business. Tell me about what led to that.
Well, before that, so when I got out of college, I worked for 2 small business accounting firms, and I think it was more of a practice of what not to do in terms of structuring a firm. I mean, one guy always had a stack of books about how to sell your accounting firm, and he was kind of on his way out the door. The other one, was more of a toxic environment about how they treat clients and customer service, things like that. But that being said, and then around that time, I was also enrolling in the Universal course. I always had it in my head, even from that first professor. He kind of lit the sort of idea that, hey, you can make a business out of this. You can do accounting for small businesses and make a great livelihood doing it. So that was always my intention, and I actually pursued it further and initially found Universal Accounting when I was taking that intro to accounting course. So I always had that, the company in the back of my mind. And then just when I graduated, I knew I wanted to kind of expand my sort of knowledge base in terms of small accounting. So I signed up for Universal Accounting right away, and I graduate. I think I finished it in early 2015. In January 2015, started my practice.
Well, that's going to be an interesting journey to share here in a minute. But one of the things I'd like to kind of emphasize here is it seems like you've had this idea of starting your own practice very early on in your career with the intentions of having a business and having clients. It seems like this was very purposeful. So can you speak to the idea of really what enticed you about having your own practice?
A couple of things, just the freedom. Like I said, the different small business accounting firms was a practice and what not to do. So having that freedom to sort of dictate the pace and the practice and the style that I wanted to do. Meanwhile, sort of on a personal side, my daughter was born with a heart defect and required open heart surgery, so we didn't know what was going to happen with that. And so I wanted to make an effort to be there for her as much as I could. So that was sort of an aligning factor as well.
Yes, I've seen that journey with you and your daughter, and as I understand it, she's doing well now, isn't she?
Yeah, she's doing fantastic, actually.
Yeah, well, congratulations on that. I know that when that came about, that was a very trying time, and so I'm pleased to hear that this is at least on a happy note today. So that's encouraging. So congratulations there. Let me kind of take this to the next level. You're working with business owners, you've been working with these clients. What kind of success stories might you share as to how you feel you've actually influenced them for the better? How have you impacted maybe some of your clients to help them from the accounting role you play?
I think it's more of a helping them in terms of, I don't have to worry about this anymore. I mean, that's my main appeal. Is a lot of the businesses that come to me have been doing their own books and they've been operating their own thing, and it just seems like they're stretched in 5 different directions. And accountants, especially in the small business space, are here to provide a little levity and sort of lessen the burden off the business owner so they can actually work on their business rather than in it constantly. It's also sort of helping businesses understand the sort of basic tenets of financial literacy when it comes to small business accounting. And I had a meeting with and it's always, I think as a side note, it's always interesting how the philosophies of accountant to accountant change. I had a recent meeting with a potential client, and we talked about taxes and S-corp, sort of S-corp elections and sort of implications on that. And he told me, he's like, well, you taught me more in 15 minutes than my last accountant taught me in 6 years. So I think a part of what I think clients, how I appeal to clients is I'm always willing to teach them everything I can to make sure they're successful.
Well, one, I think that's one of the things that really appeals to me about you, because as we'll kind of jump into now, you do have that teacher philosophy, and that's why your coaching with your students is, I think, so much appreciated by those that work with you. But as you're working with these clients, you're in a situation of really making a difference. And I like your message, your story, because that is, I think, one of the things that's causing you to grow your business and have the success that you've experienced. So kind of, you don't have to go into all the numbers or all the details, but give everybody kind of an idea of what you've grown your business to be. I mean, are you working with like 3 business owners making $2,000 a month, or, how are you doing? You don't have to get into the specifics per se, but really let's get an essence of what you've been able to build over these last few years.
Well, I started in 2015, and by March of 2016, I took my business full time. I had about 2 or 3 clients that first year, just because I was working sort of part-time / full-time at a different company. Once I got full-time, I really started just focusing on that 100%. I had a family structure that was very supportive and wanted me to do the best I could. So after that, sort of first year of doing it full-time, I had about 12 clients, and now I'm about 25 clients.
Love it. So one of the things that I'd like to just maybe draw attention to is, like you, many of the people that we work with do actually transition into this in a very systemic way. What I mean by that is to say they maybe have a daytime job that's their primary income, and you look at doing this as a supplemental income to begin with. Oftentimes they're in a situation where they kind of stumble into the first few clients, whether it be friends or family, and they find themselves just kind of doing this on a whim. And then at some moment they have that epiphany, that change, and there's a number of catalysts that cause it, but it's where they all of a sudden realize that rather than being a supplemental income, this really should and could be their primary income. And so one thing leads to another, and then they find themselves no longer doing this on weeknights and weekends. They find themselves all of a sudden doing this, as you have, full-time, being the primary income for your family. And I applaud you for making that transition. And your client base, having 25 business clients, doing the accounting and bookkeeping for them, that's very, very common. That's usually right where we see a lot of people, is anywhere between 15 to 25 clients. So that's very, very typical. So I think that's something to be said. What kind of services do you offer? Are you offering payroll, bookkeeping, accounting, consultative services? What kind of, tax? What kind of things are you offering right now to your client base?
My main thing that I do is monthly bookkeeping services, and I only use QuickBooks Online, so mainly QuickBooks Online related accounting. Mm-hmm. I do taxes, I do individual taxes of the owners, and then also the business returns, and also like some sort of, the S corps and the expense reports that are attached to those. I do profit consulting. I do KPI analysis and business analysis, things like that, benchmarking. I do payroll in the fact that I refer my payroll clients to like either ADP or Paychex that I have partnerships with.
Very good. So here's one of the things that I think everyone can appreciate is as they're deciding what services to offer or what it is that they want to do, they can obviously hear what it is you're doing in your successful practice and see if those are the same types of things that they would enjoy offering the services to their client base. Now, what's important is really, it's almost interesting to me how different every firm is. There's a lot of people that will focus on bookkeeping services, some will focus on tax services, and then complement it with a consultative type service. So you've got that mix obviously going on there. One of the things that I think it would be appropriate to discuss right now, and it's something we were discussing before our conversation now, is the idea of pricing. Traditionally in accounting, as many of the listeners may know, there are traditionally 4 types of accounting pricing models. You've got your general hourly billing that most people are familiar with. You set a rate and you charge based on your time. You've got your flat rate. You've got your revenue-based rate that you're using based on the size of your clients. And then you've got your value-based services that you're basically evaluating what kind of benefit the client is receiving financially to determine what the cost for your services will be. Let's talk about those for a little bit here and get your input on each of these. There are the 4. What thoughts would you first of all have about all 4 in general?
In terms of the hourly, I've never really wanted, just me personally, I've never really wanted or desired to have anything to do with hourly billing. Just because, I mean, we're in 2018, it just seems like a model that's sort of dead and dying. The only services that I really offer when I am billing by the hour is training. Everything else is fixed. My model is revenue-based fixed pricing. But value price, I mean, I think that in terms of what I do, revenue-based pricing is 95% of what I do. And then once they get to a certain revenue level, I convert them over to a value-based model just because that revenue speaks well to a value-based model.
Yeah, so what I heard you explain is hourly is rare. I mean, it has its place, but it's rare. I agree with you. A lot of it has to do with training type things, which are maybe one-off type experiences. It's easy to just say, well, this is going to be an event that will consume about 4 hours of my time, and the hourly rate will be set as much. A lot of times I see people doing it for back work. So, it's kind of unknown how much that's going to take. And so they just do that on an hourly basis. But you're right. You've got your revenue-based model that gets you to a revenue threshold that you then transition with your clients over to a value-based business model. So that's good. The flat rate, it has its place, especially when you're initially taking on clients. It's not exactly clear what's going to be happening with the workflow. So do you have any advice to anyone as to their considering or using one of those different price models?
I think you really need to have to find out what works for you. And for me, it was all about testing different methods. I never tested hourly, like I said, but I went to fixed. I did value for a little bit in terms of the smaller clients, but my experience with value is that it's sort of built for larger revenue clients. That's where they're actually going to get the maximum value from it. Versus if you're trying to do value pricing on a company that's $50,000 revenue, that price for them might not be able to be within their budget. And that's why I mean, just kind of as a point of reference, my I guess one of my niches, if you want to call it that, is small business between $0 and $500,000 of revenue. So 9 times out of 10, I'm still using that revenue-based method.
Perfect. No, that's exactly what I expected you to share, and I appreciate you saying all that. Now, let's go to some advice. I think this is something everyone would appreciate hearing from you. You started your business. There are people listening today to what we're having here as a discussion, and they're intrigued about starting and building their practice. What advice would you have for them?
In terms of starting your own business, it's just get a clear idea of what you want your practice to be. I remember when I was first starting out, I was constantly reading everything I could about small business practices, processes, going on Facebook and finding all the information I could about it. it just comes down to the little details. What software are you going to use? What services are you going to offer? How is your pricing going to be? What's your workflow going to be like? It's just get a sense of who you want to be, get a sense of who you want to market to, who you want to serve, how you're going to serve them, and just, I guess, the more process driven and the more sort of things you can get outlined and really nailed down early, better off you be.
Very good. Now, you've been in business, you have your practice. What kind of advice would you have to someone that's in the process right now of they're trying to build their firm beyond what it is? Maybe they've plateaued, maybe they're hiring new employees, maybe they're in the process of starting a new location. What advice would you have for somebody that's already kind of established and up and running like you are right now?
Just look at your firm to see if you have any weaknesses, just to see, can anything be improved? I'm a big fan of the lean startup sort of mentality where you're constantly testing things to make sure if something's working or if it isn't. And if you're sort of plateauing, it means that, there's a chink in the armor somewhere. Just sort of, do an analysis on your businesses. Are my employees being utilized as much as possible? Am I overstaffed? Are my processes efficient? I remember, like, for me, when I first started, I had 5 different softwares that I wanted to try to offer to clients. And I made the decision about a year after that I would rather be really good at one than okay at 5. And so that's why I use QuickBooks Online only. And that's an example. I know some practices that still use 2, 3, 4 different softwares. And it's hard to systematize. It's hard to scale when you're using so many different things.
It's better to be the expert than the jack of all trades is what I would say there. So that's good advice. One of the things that I realize is sometimes out of a sense of desperation, we try to take on a lot of things, maybe not the ideal clients, or maybe we branch out into things that maybe are a distraction from our core as to what it is we actually do as a business. And we justify it because we're finding ourselves in a situation of trying to say, well, I'm growing. Well, in reality, you might be just kind of spreading yourself thin. So I like your advice. That's really quite well said. So with all that context, this brings me to an interesting point, which is you happen to be one of our many coaches who helps individuals as they're starting and building their firms. And most importantly, you're a coach for our Professional Bookkeeper program, as well as our QuickBooks Specialist Training program. And you work with our students as they're learning the concepts, as they're then applying these principles in their lives, whether it be within their careers or starting their business. What kind of insights might you have from that coaching role you play with each of these students?
A lot of them are just, some questions and some students, it's sort of overwhelming at first because a lot of them don't have that accounting background. And it's basically a new world and sort of getting used to the debits and credits and kind of thinking the way, like Alan said in his videos, thinking the way a bank thinks, things like that. A lot of other students, I make it a habit to send welcome emails every week to the new students, and they say hello, and then I always invite them to ask questions if they have questions about starting their practice. And that's where we get into really sort of the details of sort of what do you envision your practice to be, and what are the processes there, and just sort of, what software, I get questions, what software should I use? Should I do an LLC? Should I do an S Corp? Should I, what niche should I do? How should my pricing be? And I try to guide students to sort of the best practices that I have, not necessarily what I do. Just because someone does something doesn't mean it's going to work for you. But I like to give them some sort of the information, the sort of best practices, I guess you would, if in terms of software selection and sort of, what's the solution that's going to work best for you and your situation.
Well, one of the things that I think is really key to what you just shared is the fact that, one, being that they're students or alumni of Universal Accounting and they're going through programs, from you, you're helping them be in business for themselves, but not by themselves. It's their company. They get to make the decisions. They're obviously able to hear your advice and get your input as to your successes and what you've experienced. But ultimately, it is their decision, and they're able to then realize their own dreams. So it's quite beautiful. It's a nice mesh of they're not alone. They're able to actually reach out to you as their coach for that advice, get your input. You've got that wisdom having been doing this for as long as you have. And so they really have that extra bit of help in their back pocket to ensure that they have the confidence they need to move forward. So I love what you were sharing. So that really makes me want to ask you, how did Universal Accounting Center help you as you've been going through this process of starting and building your practice?
Well, when I first, it was a great refresher for me, especially in terms of, it kind of brought me back to the accounting 101. I really liked, the video content that Alan presents. It's very engaging, at least to me, an accounting nerd. I really like the material and how it's laid out, and sort of learning the sort of gradual steps of how we get to where we need to go in terms of being accountants and practicing and giving clients the deliverables. That being said, I had no idea about how to market my practice, about who I was, about any of that. And I sort of took advantage of the master coaching after a couple of months and said, well, I need some help to help me navigate this. And that's where my relationship with Rick Howard came in and was very useful. We'd have weekly calls, and I'd have assignments, and we talk about, who are you as a practice, and what are you trying to do, and, what's, coming up with an analysis that benefits your business, and making it. And the most important thing was making you the most confident you can be at sort of presenting your business and talking about your business and marketing your business.
Well, I'm glad you brought up that confidence statement. I really do believe that there's a secret to the success in business, and it's both confidence and competence. It's the confidence to be able to look that business owner in the eye and say, I can do the work. I can take care of your accounting. I can give you the information you need to make more intelligent business decisions. It's the competence then. It's the skills and the abilities to do the work efficiently and profitably that ensures that as a business, you're doing this in a way that's profitable. There's nothing worse than taking on a client and going back and stumbling through the workflow and not being profitable or financially successful there. So those two married together are very important. And then I liked what you shared about Rick helping you from a marketing point of view in getting a concise message, a concise marketing program to literally go out there and acquire the clients. So that's wonderful. I think that's great. So let's go to this. How do you see the accounting profession changing in the near future? What things should we be aware of and be watching for?
Well, they were talking about like how the club, well, let me back up. Well, in 2015, when I started my practice, I kind of got my first client, oddly enough, was QuickBooks Online, and initially I hated it. I said, I just want desktop clients. And now I don't even, I know desktop from coaching the students and stuff, but in terms of my own practice, I don't really touch desktop. And I think that's where the industry is really headed. And the people who are going to be successful in this industry are the people who are going to be the ones who embrace technology, are going to be the ones who are using the apps and using the tools to make themselves more efficient. So we're not just bookkeepers, we're also, trusted advisors to help clients actually navigate the bigger pictures of their business rather than just the compliance side of things.
I love that. Yeah, there's something to be said right now about the profession, because it is moving to where we are becoming more and more consultative as to the relationships we have with our clients, that trusted advisor, as you just mentioned. So that's beautiful. So understanding that that's what you see going on today, and you did a wonderful statement there about QBO, QuickBooks Online. What more would you like to add and share with the people listening in as to your success, your practice, and what you're doing now?
Well, I'm always looking for ways to make me stand out of the crowd, in terms of I'm not trying to squash on anyone here, but, there was a time where I was just following everybody on Facebook, and one day I woke up, I said, man, it's better to be a leader than a follower. And you sort of got to put yourself in positions to lead and to do things that people aren't going to do. even if it makes you uncomfortable. I mean, I think that the rewards very much outweigh the risks. For example, I mean, one day I wanted to do lawyers. I wanted to do a lawyer niche on top of my small business niche. So I just started calling up all my local bar associations and said, hey, I'm an accountant and I know law accounting. I can speak to attorneys about law accounting. And I'm speaking on December 7th to the Milwaukee Bar Association about IELTS and law accounting. I'm trying to get involved in the startup community. I'm trying to get involved in local sort of chambers and other communities that are trying to embrace small businesses, especially the micro businesses. I'm doing video marketing, which many people are just terrified of, and I'm just kind of put both feet in it at once. So I mean, I'm trying to do everything I can to sort of make me stand out.
So while you're seeing that all happen, I'm sure you're recognizing that when you had that epiphany of Facebook becoming not a follower or not remaining a follower, but becoming, as I would say, an influencer, a leader, I'm sure that really took a lot of stress off of your shoulders, didn't it?
Yeah, because I mean, and I do see it on Facebook where a lot of people are constantly asking questions and relying on others. And I mean, you just need to have that initiative I'm going to be one of the top in my field. And I'm going to, I want to be recognized as a top member in my field. And that's my goal. And that's what keeps me up at night is, how can I advance my expertise in my field?
I love it. I love it. There's so many people out there that I think are eager to stand out, and that's exactly what you're doing here is becoming that influencer. And I appreciate the fact that as a coach for Universal Accounting, people have that exposure to you and have access to you to really learn from what you're doing and kind of follow behind you as you share your wisdoms there. So let me kind of wrap this up. One of the things that I definitely want to say is, what advice would you have for someone regarding Universal Accounting as they may be considering enrolling with one of our programs?
Yeah, I definitely recommend it beyond anything. I mean, just the pure knowledge there that's to be gained, especially for students who are they're interested in learning the bookkeeping and the accounting and they don't have that accounting background. It really supercharges your knowledge in a very short amount of time if you're willing to dedicate yourself to it. And then the support's there. I'm there. Like I said, every Friday, the first thing I do when I get here is I look at the new students for the week and I send them a welcome email so they know that we're here to support them. And, regardless of whether it's about a client issue you're having, some curriculum you're having, the debits and credits issues, or just, how do I start my practice? The staff is here to support you. And just marketing too, just taking advantage of all the resources, the master coaching where you actually get the confidence to talk about your business and understand what your business is, what your goals are and how to get there.
Excellent. Well, it's basically a testament to the fact that you can be in business for yourself, but not by yourself. You've obviously been, as a coach, working with many of our students. You brought up Rick Howard. He's one of the other coaches. You are two among many that are actually available who are experts in the various aspects of an accounting firm, whether it be offering services related to tax, accounting, consultative services. So let me just kind of wind this up by simply saying that as you are listening to this, realize that there are a lot of tools and resources out there so that you can actually do this in a deliberate way. Since 1979, Universal Accounting Center has been helping accounting professionals excel in their careers, whether it be to get a job, promotion, pay increase, or more importantly, start and build successful firms. And that's what we're here to do, is give you the tools, the resources, and most importantly, the coaching and support you need to achieve that. So I encourage you to basically take that leap of faith and step out there and really move forward and make this the best year you have in your career as you basically start and build your dream. And most importantly, take advantage of some of the various offers that we have here at Universal Accounting. I'm going to put below an offer to get a free ebook of one of our books that I think is very instrumental in helping people. It's called In the Black: 9 Principles to Make Your Business Profitable. And I would encourage you to take advantage and get a free copy of it. It's yours to be had. And I really feel that it will give you some of the things you need to move forward to be confident and competent in in your career as an accounting professional. So Adam, I appreciate your time. You've been very kind to kind of share your story and impart your wisdoms. And most importantly, I appreciate the support you give to our students. Are there any final words you'd like to share?
No, I think we cover it, but I mean, I guess the main thing is that, you know, as a student, you just realize that we're here, you know, we're here to support you and your success. You know, I really like interacting with the students and making sure that they understand everything, making sure they can walk into that client meeting confident that they know what they're talking about, confident that they can help those clients with their accounting needs.
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for listening in. Adam, thank you for your time and for the support again that you offer to our students. And congratulations on the successes you've had in your business. Obviously, over the last number of years, you've grown your practice to something you can definitely be proud of. And regarding your daughter, I'm happy to hear that she's still doing well. I wish you and your family the best, and enjoy obviously the interactions that we've had over the last number of years as we've each been working with our company. So congratulations, thank you, and everyone have a wonderful day.
Thank you.